Hear ye! The Parliament of Geeks shall now come to order!
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the return of the Parliament of Geeks, where we ask and answer one simple question. Be it weeb, or be it scrub? I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have two of my good brothers here in the temple. We have the man who is currently suffering under the watchful eye of Mr. Game & Watch. Good brother Matty. And the bane of my fucking existence. Good brother Xanatrix.
Hello there.
I'm not doing the...
By the way, Mr. Game & Watch is more than welcome in my household. They actually grilled the supper tonight. Knows how to flip burgers, folks.
Yep. And I'm perfectly
no, that's a joke.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're waiting for there.
I was just gonna say, I'm no stranger to flipping burgers. It's flipping around stir fry that I always have the worst luck with.
Oh yeah, with the pan.
See
that? Yeah. By the way, homemade burgers are always better than fast food burgers.
You just decided dinner for me, Monk. I'm getting Chinese.
And both of them are still better than MRE burgers.
MREs. I remember eating those.
Had a buddy in college who gave us one of those MRE burgers. Never again.
Maddie, be very thankful you never tried to eat vegetarian omelet MRE.
Oh God! Oh,
be happy you never tried to eat any of the chocolate cake MRE pieces.
All right.
Well, in that case, I'm insulated.
I had a buddy who was. We had a neighbor who was vegetarian, and I will repeat the words verbatim: "Never again." Yeah, there's a reason why she never got her security deposit, because apparently the vom clogged the toilet. I don't ask why. I never asked why. I think it was a funny little anecdote. That's all it is.
Which is weird, because I've heard that there's some decent-ish MREs in Canada.
There's some decent-ish MREs in the US. Specifically, it's usually the pasta or pizza ones.
Yeah.
Usually.
Unless you get Skittles with it.
Shut up.
Do I detect a hatred for Skittles?
No, I love Skittles, but that's not what he means.
Getting Skittles in an MRE is bad luck.
Really?
Yes.
Very.
I was never aware of this.
You know, though, I think at this point, guys, we are off the rails.
Yeah. So, some of you may be wondering, wait, Shibuya 15, weren't you going to be doing something about a confidence man? Well, that was the initial plan, because I believed at the time, foolishly, that it had enough episodes to fit within my criteria. But I began to realize that was not the case, so we called a bit of an audible. Something that Easy Rider has reviewed in the past, and something that is Tokusatsu adjacent, but not quite. It's just that it has a lot of actors who would be known for their Tokusatsu roles.
It does fit in the umbrella of Tokusatsu, because it is a special effects driven program, but it's not in the same umbrella of Super Sentai or Kamen Rider or Ultraman. It is Tokusatsu in the special effects department only.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not a bad thing inherently, at least not for this series. in which we will obviously get into.
Yeah.
And all I have to say there is that if it has tokusatsu, it technically is tokusatsu.
Yeah.
There are some people who make weird discernments between things. Like, I've heard of people not considering kaiju as tokusatsu. I'm like, but it by definition is. So
Yeah, because it's special effects.
yeah, this isn't
regard,
in the same. I would say that the best way to describe this is it is in the same tokusatsu area, but not the same tokusatsu method. It is a method that is not what most people would expect who have even a passing understanding of tokusatsu.
The generalization is simply this: if it's got if it's got a lot of special effects in it, it is tokusatsu.
Yep.
In that aspect, most of the movies in the MCU would fit under the tokusatsu category. Would fit.
But before we even get into that, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to rise for our drinking anthem. School!
Hola.
Skull! Sound the yellow horn! Need to work on my timing.
It's okay. This is only your second time with that duty.
I'll get it eventually.
You said duty.
Yeah.
You know you get into Carnegie Hall, right?
Practice.
Practice. It's 3 practices, not just 1.
Yep. But Shibuya 15 is an odd beast, even for 2005.
It's very weird because in the period between 2000 and 2001 to, what do you think, Zan? 2006, 2007-ish? I want to be broad here because it's a period where there obviously it's a transition from going to from practical to all practical to mostly practical to going into CGI to going full CGI.
Oh, and I would say that even Tokusatsu hasn't gone into full CGI. A lot of it can be done in CGI.
Oh yeah.
They still have practical effects.
Yeah.
A lot of the suit battles, except for the quicker movements, even today, are practical.
But from what I mean was the technology to bring CGI in was just starting between even earlier from the early 90s on, but it took a turn with how the graphics get ramped up.
Yeah.
It used to be that some things were done, with green screens and interesting flashes and cuts. And then we got to do the same thing, but with actual animation because of the addition of CG.
Yeah. So, obviously you go into Kamen Rider Kuga, my boy. This was early 2000s where, if you got to take a pinch of salt and a bit of a dip in the suspension of disbelief, because there are moments in that series, I will admit this, where the CGI was just not there yet for the time.
I will contrast it with what was going on in anime, where a lot of studios were trying to figure out this whole digipaint thing.
Well, and we can also make a comparison directly between a previous Parliament entry and its usage of both digipaint, actual drawing, and CGI in Chorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, they married it as well as one could for the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it still stands to today, as our previous episode shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's in the same era where weird ideas like Shibuya 15 and God no, I'm not making you watch 49 episodes of Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon for God's sakes.
The only interesting idea that came out of the live action Sailor Moon was an evil Mercury.
Thank you. I've been saying that for years. It's still a pretty good series. It's just it has not aged well because plush Luna and plush Artemis by extension, and the CGI did not age well, unfortunately.
I only bring that up to threaten people who complain about some of the animation in Crystal.
And that got corrected on the BDs.
Yeah, it corrected on the BDs, and it was the 3D animation and attacks. That was just season 1. They fixed that shit up in the BDs and in future seasons. So this was very corrected.
I remember when her arms and leg looked like tubes of sausage during the transformation. Before they gave it an animation skeleton in the BDs.
Yeah.
Which only slightly fixed the problem.
Now, it's an improvement, though. It's an improvement.
Yeah. Now, the point is that this is a time of a whole new bunch of technologies and a whole new bunch of storytelling methods being introduced a lot of fast, and people trying to come to grips with this new avenues that they have access to.
A lot of new techniques, a lot of new effects, a lot of new technologies, and creators and people going, I wonder how would that work?
Mm-hmm.
And
a lot of shit throwing at the wall.
Yeah. And I would say that this probably culminated, if we're talking the live action tokusatsu scene, in Garo. Yes, Garo's 2005.
That was.
And we've got the 3D effects that were very good for their time. We've got the practical effects and the extremely well choreographed fighting. I am not going to downplay Garo on that.
No. And in my opinion, I think the reason Garo's CG doesn't perturb people like CG in some other works at this time is
it's intended to be grotesque.
Well, there's that, and you can get away with a lot when you lean into stylization.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you're mostly allowed. If the story, it's a case of if the story is good and the acting is good, if everything is good, the CGI can be compensated. You could use the CGI as a way to tell the story, but at the same time, get away with maybe technologies that aren't fully baked yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, Shibuya 15 ran from January 10th all the way to March 10th. And I do want to point out one particular thing that I feel was a mistake, and that is spoiling one of the big twists about the story in the opening credits.
Yeah, opening credits screwed it over. Now we should mention that we watched an alternative. I mean, do we explain how we watched it? Now I think we should.
Yeah.
Because this was one of the few tokusatsu series that actually survived the purge. And by purge, if you know TV Nihon, then that's all I need to explain.
Although the thing I would find funny about that purge is that it didn't take long for people to mirror everything that got dropped.
Yep.
Yeah, you go to a cat site, most of it's there.
Almost all of it's there. They've got it in large collections.
Now, I think part of the reason I should note that there's some connection. There's a few connections when it comes to the cast, but in particular when it comes to the writing and directing. The script writing was done by Shoji Yonemura.
Mm-hmm.
Who obviously has quite a bit of stuff to hit to his name. Although when it comes to his Kamen Rider stuff, it's mostly been movies. Actually, no, I take that back because because the same year he was writing Hibiki. Then was involved with some of the writing for Kabuto, Den-O, Kiva, Decade, and O's, as well as that weird ass Kamen Rider G one-off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a thing, folks. In a word, don't. Or do if you want. If you have friends and want to riff something.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with riffing.
Yeah. Now and more relevant to us, one of the producers is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
We talked about him on a Geek Watch.
Shinichiro Shirakura.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whenever it comes to someone being a producer on a television show, how involved they are is hard to determine. So I'm not going to say that he had his hand directly in it, or if it was just a case of overseeing in the same way as that executive producer gag from Futurama.
Yeah. Hey, for all we know, they might have been. They could have been involved with like literally signing papers and saying, "I want to see this."
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, it could have been, no, change this, change everything. I'm not getting the sense out of this series where it's like, no, change everything. This is literally maybe a couple of changes so it fits the TV format. Otherwise, left alone.
Yeah. Now, one of the other big drawbacks that I do want to get out of my system right now, because it doesn't necessarily pertain to the story, is the fact that we were having neck problems at the end of every episode.
Ooh, which I should explain. That's something that's not new. This is literally just fair warning. The mood whiplash here is more than your typical anime these days.
Yeah, the ending would pop in, and it was never the right tone, like
No.
ever. I could
lyrically spot on, but like the style of song and the melody, it's like super super dark and poppy. No, not the singer though. We wouldn't be surprised if she was influenced.
Now, the story ends up opening up with seeing an amnesiac kid in the middle of a garbage dump in Shibuya. And even though none of us have been to Shibuya, there are certain areas we recognize because we played way too much of The World Ends With You.
And other games like Persona 5.
Persona 5 and Ghostwire Tokyo.
I played a lot of Ghostwire Tokyo.
Mm-hmm. But the only clue that he has is that he ends up throwing up a note that from someone named Revu that simply says "Escape Shibuya." And one of the key things that we see very early on is that we have a bit of the Warriors in the sense that you have 3 themed gangs. You have the biggest gang in town with Pal Hands. You have the all-female gang of Love Gen. And you have DJ's gang, who seem to be a bunch of slackers.
Unkamu.
So,
they were a dancing gang essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right off the bat, you're wondering to yourself, who's got beer? And it's clanging, and you're hearing in your head going, "Warriors, come and play!"
but originally he's told by some of the people in Palhan's that his name is Shota. He's the
gopher.
He's the gopher, as they describe, the lowest ranking member of the most dominant gang in Shibuya.
And his job is to go around and get stuff.
Mm-hmm. But he ends up in awkward situations because meeting somebody from Love Gen gives the idea of, wait, are Palhan's and Love Gen working together? Of course,
yeah, it gives Bunkamu that idea when they try to attack this Love Gen member.
Yeah, and throughout the whole, one thing I want to note is that in a lot of this early on, even though it's very clearly Shibuya, the way that everything is shot, there's something wrong about it.
I think it's a style choice because right off the bat, I think from the camera angle to some of the mood, it's very unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
And be prepared. Some of you may get some Battlefield or flashbacks. Don't worry, it's not that bad.
It's not Dutch angle every fucking where, but the Dutch angle is present.
Go ahead. Along with stylistic slideshows and shaky cam.
Mm-hmm.
Shaky cam. You will think, "Oh God, is my computer chugging?" No, that's the frame rate. That is intentional. It's all in a way to give you a sense of unsettledness, to make you unsettled, to make you feel slightly uncomfortable with the setting.
Yeah.
Tilted and disjointed, I believe, are the best words.
Yeah. Now, when it seemed a lot of things seem to shift into the search and eventually rescue of Chico, a member of Love Gen.
He's been missing.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't take long for the other shoe to drop, in the fact that Chico, who seems fairly nice at first, is a few eggs short of a picnic.
She's been
that would say that she's dumb. She's not dumb. She's to quote Ken Titus from the sitcom Titus, she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
No, a few eggs short of a picnic is also used for craziness.
Mm-hmm.
Screw loose, all those types of things.
Fruit Loops, nuts.
Yep, all that fun stuff.
Crazy.
A psycho hose beast, to quote Wayne's World. The first thing we notice is she's got bottles of suspicious red liquid, and when our protagonist Shota, or whatever his name might be, asks her what that's all about, she's like, "Oh, that's just blood." He's like, "Wait, what?" and he's like, "Where the hell did you get that?" She's like, "Oh, I've just been draining my own blood." And then she turns to him with a knife. She's like, "But now I want yours."
And
vampires.
Just
She's
when,
not a vampire,
just
but
when
vampires.
things end up getting at their worst, she ends up getting a mark on her hand.
It just suddenly manifests.
It just pops up out of nowhere for whatever reason at the point of the episode.
Now, what also has been happening on the other side of things here is Love Gen and Palhan's have been fighting underneath what is essentially a underground walkway to go under the streets of Shibuya to avoid the driven traffic. And there has been a literal Catholic priest quoting
scripture,
scripture from the Bible,
like a priest would do.
And these kids seem to just ignore him. He's an adult. They're all in their teenagers, 15 if the title is to be believed.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, after these things are happening with Chico and Shota, the priest starts getting a little weird.
He's twitching. He's starting to go nuts, and
his scripture changes, like it starts to become disjointed itself, and the meanings aren't from the scripture anymore.
It's getting incoherent.
Yeah, and this actually causes this gang war to kind of pause and notice what's happening. It's clearly something they're familiar with. So they follow this guy who goes straight to Shota and Chico. And of all things to happen, transforms into a long-haired Mark Musashi.
Yeah. The
real star of the show.
The real star, because, folks, long-haired Mark Musashi? No, that ain't enough. Oh, no. Oh, despite the fact that he's very fucking fluent in Japanese, the producers and director make the conscious choice to have Mark Musashi speak Japanese with a very American accent intentionally.
The worst intentional American-spoken Japanese anyone has ever heard. For to use
so bad it'll make the OSW boys blush.
So here's a comparison. Anyone who's watched Gundam Wing in Japanese knows the famous line Hiroyui says to Relena Peacecraft, "Omae o koros." And that's with a semi-decent understanding and grasp of how Japanese should be pronounced. Mark Musashi, as this character introduced as the name Peace, would say it like this: "Omae wo korosu."
Yeah,
like I said, fucking intentionally, to the point where you can feel Mark Musashi kind of cringe and trying to say it that way.
And furthermore, not only is this Mark Musashi, not only is he sporting long black hair that's kind of stringy and scraggly, he's got the most edgelord looking kit on ever. Lightly baggy black pants, black shoes, an open black trench coat with no fucking shirt on, and sported on his chest is the same mark as what is on the back of Chico's hand.
And to just add to the weirdness,
there's more. Wait, there's fucking more.
Once the mark happens, I believe she ends up saying "itekimasu."
Itekimasu. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think it's and everyone else says "iterashai."
Yeah, iterashai.
Saying it completely synchronized.
Yep. And these are a form of address used when someone is leaving. Itekimasu. I'm going now. Iterashai. Have a safe trip, essentially. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to colloquialize it to English. Obviously, those aren't the actual meanings, but it's close enough.
Close enough to get you the idea of what the fuck is going on, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm off. Have a good trip.
Yeah.
And then... Peace.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Dr. Nick.
Oh, goddamn. That's an old one. Yes. That is exactly it.
If it works, it works. Bye, everybody. Bye, crazy bitch.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And so Peace then proceeds to murder this chick, which Shota freaks the fuck out about. Reasonably so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how would you react if you saw bloody murder 3 fucking feet from you? I'd say there's a reasonable chance we'd all go, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably be more likely to try and stop it, but
I mean, it's the fight or flight thing. It's like, oh god, you're frozen in fear, or you're running, or you're going, "I must stop it." But like, here's the thing about Peace in kayfabe. Peace, very fucking strong. Can and will kick your ass.
Hey,
I mean, it's Mark Musashi.
It's Mark Musashi. Just ask Keith Justice about how well that worked out.
Oh, the stories we could tell.
But just when things are starting to get maximum weirdness, a woman in a
it
white
goes to 11.
a girl in a white coat shows up, ends up summoning a armor from these weird Magatama looking things.
She summons it supposedly from the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
She takes off her jacket. One of them stabs her in the back, but instead of killing her, it turns into a mecha-looking suit.
Mm-hmm.
And the other two just dissipate in herself and give her the ability to fly. Not fly, but
Jump good.
Hardcore, jump good. Yeah, jump good. We'll go with jump good. Jump good, run good, and stab good.
Mm-hmm. And using that is able to drive off Peace, and after Peace gets his ass kicked, he transforms back into the priest that we saw earlier.
When the priest gets up, looks at the kids. You kids need more scripture. They tell him to fuck off. He fucks off like nothing happened. No memory of him getting his ass kicked in the form of Mount Musashi.
Mm-hmm.
He essentially reverts to who he was prior with no repercussions.
No repercussions. He ain't dead. For those wondering, Matrix? Matrix know that the person would die if they were Agent Johnson or whatever. Or Agent Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. This one, Peace dies, fucks off, body's brand spanking new.
Yep. And in the aftermath of this, she ends up revealing to our protagonist that his name is not Shota.
But she doesn't tell him what his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Believe us, with the refrain to use Eminem's "My Name Is" was heavily influenced.
Yeah. Episode 2 is essentially a resetting of the board after dealing with all of the crazy. And
everyone goes back to their corners, and we get a little bit of more lore drop.
Yeah. First off, there's a Kengo's tattoo shop is a neutral territory. And as an aside, Kengo is played by Tomohisa Yuge, who was fucking everywhere in the mid-2000s.
He was a working man in Tokusatsu.
But his tattoo parlor called Koya's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
also,
we say parlor, and he legally it is a tattoo parlor, but
it's also a restaurant, and
even though he claims it isn't, even though
but it fucking is.
Yeah. He constantly serves the kids katsudon bowls and then makes them work it off.
And it's also a nail bar. You know,
a call to home nail bar.
Yeah.
And
run by the same mysterious girl who can transform into Super Fighter, Emma.
And you want to know what I just realized that it is? It's Pop's Barbershop.
Oh my god, yes. Yes.
It just doesn't have the swear jar.
It fucking should have the swear jar.
I mean, they didn't really swear at all, so...
Well, the school-age kids, it's probably a case of I'm pretty sure the original script probably crawled for it, but I think every parent in Japan would have probably, you made these kids swear, or I'll sue!
Yeah,
so they probably just, kept it clean-ish.
They did make the kids use some very rude ways of addressing people.
Oh, yeah, they skirted around
Sama,
that
omae, teme, but those are all things that you would typically see amongst delinquents and gang members.
Yeah. And as we mentioned before, after having some katsudon, you gotta work it off. Asagi ends up leaving for a part-time job, forcing not forcing not Shota to work off the bill, as well as staying the night. And this is where there's a bit of a drop about Asagi's family. They try to visit said family, only to find out they can't leave Shibuya.
Every time they do,
they kind of do, but you got to go fucking nuts and get killed by Mark Musashi with a long fucking mop there.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, that proposition's 50-50.
That's not something that was quite revealed at this point, though.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, not yet, anyway.
But every time they try to cross the border,
murder part was revealed episode 1, but that's a last resort, you're going nuts kind of situation.
Yeah. The thing that happens when they try to cross out of Shibuya is they get to some specific sets of train tracks, and a train stops them. And Asagi's all like, fuck this, we can't get out. And Not Shota is like, well, fuck this, I'm going to keep trying to get out. And he finds a bus that says it's traveling to another part of Tokyo. Because Shibuya is only one small part of Tokyo, people. Mm-hmm. And so he gets on the bus. The bus does a circuit around Shibuya. And when he gets out, the signage on the bus has changed to say it is the Shibuya circuit.
There's also
really wrong, yeah.
There's also midway through he falls asleep and ends up right back where he started.
Yep. It's a little suspicious, just a little.
Just a tad.
Mm-hmm. However, at the same time, Ryugo, the head of Palhands, wants to try and instigate a fight with when it comes to the other gangs.
Fuck that! He wants a gang war so he can rule the whole goddamn Shibuya.
Yeah, and
anyone who doesn't want to do it is lame.
And at the same time, he wants to get in good with Emma just in case peace shows up. Which it's a good plan, but Asagi ends up being the one marked. And in the aftermath of this whole thing, not Shota ends up recalling his actual name, which is Tsuyoshi.
Yep, Tsuyoshi. Mm-hmm. Which I'm going to be a literal. I'm pretty sure if I were to look at the kanji, it literally means strong boy.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes to the conclusion that I know my name. I'm not Shota, because Ryugo and everyone else is still calling him Shota at that point.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm Tsuyoshi, and he tries to stop peace on his own.
That goes about as well as you'd think.
And then Emma, of course,
that's a good strategy, Con. Let's see how it pays off. And his ass is kicked.
I'd like to point out that a recurring thing with Peace throughout the series is him quoting Buddhist scripture and saying it in a very wrong, not Japanese that you don't even need to speak the language to be able to tell how not right it is.
It is so wrong in so many fucking ways.
Hey, Monk, one of our favorite sayings is actually applies here. He's not even wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just things like Buddhist scripture. There's also historical texts, and even later on, top 10 lists. It's almost like Peace is randomly quoting things, but contextually, the things he's quoting do apply to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very obliquely and esoterically.
Yes. And with episode 3, this is where we start to get into a bit more of the rules of Shibuya, and there is a bit of a pattern throughout a lot of the episodes of Peace showing up only to get killed by Emma.
He gets owned.
A lot.
And
But
the thing is, every time, and this is the reason why the Agent Smith comparison is apropos. He never shows up. He shows up by essentially possessing some random person, and when Peace gets his ass kicked, he reverts right back to whatever person he possessed, and that person just goes back to whatever they were doing
without even questioning why they are where they are doing what they are. On top of this, we learn that Asagi, having avoided death at the hands of Peace, is now referred to as Yojire, or a twisted person.
Or
what that means? Yes. Beyond that, we don't know what they mean by that. Does it mean they've gone crazy? That seems to be the implication. But what Asagi did was nearly kill someone she was fighting. She fully intended to beat the ever-living hell out of him until he died. Due to provocation regarding her personal life.
Someone tore up a picture that was not supposed to be torn up.
Of her parents. And it was intentional. Ryugo clearly, planned it that way so that
Ryugo was a fucking prick. And he was a fucking prick.
He's such a fun villain, though.
He is.
Taruine!
You're so lame.
Yeah. The entire set of sequence of events has now made Asagi out to just be like, when it happened, she even played into it. She said "itekimasu," and everyone else said "iterashai," except for Tsuyoshi, and of course Emma, who wasn't there at the time.
Yeah. Now, in a fair bit of the aftermath, it's revealed that having a mark means that you are locked on, and that the purpose of Peace seems to be to get rid of people who violate the rules.
The rules!
But we only have a vague understanding of what those rules are.
That, and the fact that, for whatever reason, Peace only targets 15-year-olds.
That's not true. There was a point where we see him killing an employee on the steps in a part of a cold open.
Well, it's at least stated as such, so you can chalk that up to a plot hole.
Either that, or they just couldn't get a young enough actor to imply that she was a part-timer that was 15.
It was artistically implied that that person was 15 years old, but obviously the actor or actress was
she was in her 20s.
Yeah,
she was in her mid-20s. You could tell.
Yeah, but in the aftermath, there you end up having another instance, because there's two major stories. One of them is Tsuyoshi trying to figure out his own past, and the other is Ryugo trying to play dirty games to get rid of the competition,
which he does constantly, and he's really good at it.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, I said he's a prick. He's a good prick.
But episode 4 is when we first see something that's going to be a recurring theme, a recurring thing throughout, and that is the blimp. A big old blimp that decides to get rid of give off the display of a red eye looking over the place and reminding me way too much of Friend Computer.
Friend Computer, or, just about anything from Ingsoc.
Mm-hmm. And I will admit it makes for a very unsettling image to have this giant eye in the sky literally watching you.
But it's only the kids can see it.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that comes up is this weird homeless guy who always seems to be in either the wrong or the right place at the right time. And much like Peace, although not with the bad Japanese, some of the things he says are technically on point, but don't make any sense when you hear it.
To quote some very old internet memeage, cryptic metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
That internet memeage would be about as old as Shibuya 15. God damn, has Metal Gear Awesome really been around that long? Back when Ego Raptor wasn't a shitbag.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Whoa. Fuck, I feel old now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, am I kidding? I always felt old.
Regardless, we get this weird homeless guy doing weird homeless things and witnessing things, and you can tell he witnesses things. He actually pays attention to the happenings around the children. And he's also pretty much someone that Tsuyoshi runs into and talks to on a semi-regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And only more frequently as the show goes on.
And it's very clear. And Ryugo at the end is talking to someone in that blimp about whether or not it's the right time to be rid of Bunkamu. So you have a third mystery of who is the man in the blimp.
I will say that it wasn't much of a mystery for me, not only because I had seen Shibuya 15 before, though it had been a long time, so details were very fuzzy,
Mm-hmm.
but also because I have a really good ear. So there is that.
Yeah.
But it was still good. Good to foreshadow that.
Mm-hmm.
Enough to keep you interested at the very least.
But then the next escalation involves the lightheadedness, the nosebleed drug, as I'll call it, as a means to get rid of Bunkamu to make them feel like they're as free as a bird, but they can't fly like one.
Yeah. All the other members of Bunkamu literally jump to their deaths using this drug.
Mm-hmm.
And then DJ asks, Tsuyoshi, Asagi, and Emma, or at least Tsuyoshi and Asagi, for help. Because he feels like someone's going to be targeting him.
Mm-hmm.
Which he technically was correct.
And they tell him no. And then later on, DJ asks Tsuyoshi for help again. And specifically wants Emma's help at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But once again is turned down.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's approached by Love Gen's new leader, because Asagi, being Yojire, is rejected by all of the kids besides Tsuyoshi and Emma. Even DJ shows a bit of a apprehensiveness around her, while he isn't quite as revolted as the other kids who just tell her she should go off and die like any Yojire would. And Nami turns out to be the one handing out the drugs. But this also results in, well, her marking.
And of course, with where the marking shows, it isn't going to take long before Peace shows up.
Peace shows up and
Wake up! Time to fucking die!
yeah, in this case, she sees the mark and then she's just fucking vaporized. Like she's killed as soon as she's marked.
So literally headshot.
Which
also causes Tsuyoshi to question whether Peace is actually a bad element.
Emma ends up, of course, kicking Peace's ass again, and even though it was not an easy fight, but
They never are, really, when you think about it.
no. But she ends up mentioning that the reason she keeps fighting Peace is for Tsuyoshi's sake. Kind of.
Well, she says for you, and at that point, it was kind of unclear at the end of that episode whether DJ actually fell off the roof or not. But then at the beginning of the next episode, DJ's shown at Kengo's shop recovering.
Yep. And in the meantime, Pal Hands has started to escalate their particular schemes, including the whole safety passage badge.
I mean, that's just a protection racket by another name.
Basically, Ryugo being a prick.
Yep.
Again, a good prick. But a prick.
But then Haru, who's been a supporting character throughout a lot of this, ends up begging Asaki to return to being Love Gen's boss because, well, even if she is marked, they'd rather that than put up with Ryugo's bullshit.
Yep, they want to free Shibuya. But Asagi's like, I'll only do it if Tsuyoshi comes with me. Because at this point, it is fairly certain from the way she's acting that Asagi has feelings for Tsuyoshi. Much like it's fairly certain, especially from the way Emma said at the last episode, Emma does too. And Tsuyoshi, being a dumb teenage boy, doesn't really have an answer for either of them. I hated being a teenager.
Well, it's like that song, Teenagers Scared the Living Shit Out of Me.
But
They don't scare me. I just hated that time in my life.
Yeah. But then there's the revelation that the parentage thing, it's the same as the parentage thing with Haru, i.e., it's fake.
Yeah. Asagi finds out, talking to Haru, who was being a little sad about stuff, that she also has parents who are medically they're under medical care at the same hospital in the same place. And then when she sees Haru's picture and compares it to the pieces of the picture she taped back together, they're the same faces. They've been given the same backstory.
Yep. And which ends up making her want say fuck this and try and flee Shibuya, ending up getting hit by a train and waking up in a classroom. But is soon sent back and gets chased by Peace. At the same time, Emma reveals that Tsuyoshi's actual name is Revu.
The same name on the piece of paper he coughed up.
But he's having a little bit of denial, where he's thinking, Wait, isn't my name Tsuyoshi? And regular, his brain breaks for a second.
Mm-hmm.
It's at that point that he receives a call from Tsuyoshi that Asagi is being chased by Peace, and he goes after Peace, but Emma can't follow because all of a sudden a weird one-wheeled robot shows up.
Which, you know how we've been semi-kind to CG of this era?
Yeah, this is where we kind of well,
The CG for her armor and the armor extensions that turn into a giant sword, all well and good.
Great.
This robot, laughable.
Folks, it's one-wheel robot, and if you're a Critical Role fan, you're going, "Oh God, we've just manifested Sam Riegel as the manifestation of Gozer the Gozerian."
To me, it. Do you want to know? Do you want to know what it reminded me of?
What, one of those robots from early on in FF7?
No, because those were actually good.
Yeah, I was gonna say
the worst parts of the CG in Beast Machines.
Oh,
At least Beast Wars and Beast Machines has the excuse of everybody was getting their feet wet.
yeah. Here, the quote unquote immersion kind of breaks just a tad. It went from deep to okay, you just wanted fucking robots in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know who screwed up with this, but somebody did.
Someone had a bright idea, and no one was there to say no.
Yeah. But
and then the actual robot design, do you know what it reminds me of in full?
what?
Like the actual design. A single-wheeled robot that is kind of goofy looking. It's Gizmo Duck.
Oh my God.
I hate you.
It's Gizmo Duck Monk.
Wow.
Yeah.
He hates me because I'm not wrong.
Oh God. I gotta hit a button.
Hi! You've just instigated your own mugging. Come on down!
I don't get too many chances to hit that. I think that felt that felt good.
That felt earned.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was essentially a two-pronged thing. Keep Emma distracted so she can't kick Peace's ass, and Peace can finally get his quarry.
Which, by the time Tsuyoshi shows up, she has been killed. He sees her body being picked up by the Corpse Disposal Corps. We forgot to mention that, by the way.
Yeah, that's an actual fucking department.
Episode 1 actually shows Tsuyoshi, as he's still wandering around, wondering what the fuck is going on, pass by some of these corpse disposal assholes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like a Chekhov's gun that shot off now.
Yeah, like right there. That's instant.
Well, that's f***ing ominous.
But
right there.
Then we get back into the weird, because one episode later, it's clear that that Asagi isn't dead, kind of.
Ish.
Not really.
He was resurrected into a valley girl.
No, she was resurrected into a cutesy gothic Lolita.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very, very niche thing from that time period. The slightly psychotic gothic Lolita, compared to Misa Amane, because it's the same fucking character. I dare you to actually prove me wrong.
Yeah. But she's calling herself Miyu now, and is acting like the main squeeze for Ryugo and Pal Hands. And this is where one particular thing is more or less revealed. Peace, technically speaking, doesn't kill anyone. He resets people.
Yeah, even Kengo knows a little bit about it. He tells Tsuyoshi, she's been reset now. She won't remember you. And then he even stops remembering that Asagi existed at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a case of the minute she's stabbed and disposed of and quote unquote dead, every fucking buddy forgets and doesn't even everyone that's not Tsuyoshi recognizes that that's not Asagi. That's Miyu.
Everyone that's not Tsuyoshi or Emma.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Emma and Tsuyoshi just look at, dude. That Asagi looks like shit. What the fuck?
And this is where it was really getting Dark City flashbacks.
Yeah. We just didn't have Kiefer Sutherland supplanting everybody's memories in the middle of the night.
Or
we just had Mark Musashi, really.
No. And Tsuyoshi is dead set on trying to get her to remember, even though everyone keeps telling him it's a lost cause. And to make these even weirder, all the members of Bunkamu who we saw Minecrafting themselves, they're alive and keep calling them and keep insisting that their name is Shota.
They're both Shota the Gopher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and DJ has now joined Pal Hands as well.
Yep.
On top of all that, we learned that Mark Musashi can be sicked on somebody who doesn't have a marking.
All you got to do is get a little bit of skin leather thing, put it platinum on the fucker, and there you go, instant mark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from what was implied,
victim.
From what was implied, they skinned that off of someone who was marked.
Mm-hmm.
Human skin with a mark on it, and put it on as a charm on a phone, which caused Mark Musashi to chase Tsuyoshi around for a while before he realized what it was and threw it into the fire.
Yeah.
It's also at this point where Tsuyoshi keeps insisting that Miyu is Asagi, that he has a sudden realization that what he's doing to Miyu is what Emma has been doing to him with the name Revu.
Mm-hmm.
Blah.
He's like, I'm being an asshole just like Emma's an asshole to me.
I'm in love with her.
I can't believe it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Keep firing, assholes! By the way, I'm never going to make that a button. It's always funny to do it yourself, folks.
But we haven't gone to plaid.
Yeah.
Yet.
Give it time. I'm pretty sure something will make us go to plaid, especially if I muster up the courage to cover a Yuasa animation again.
Oh God.
Look, I'm not going to get on the rails, but we have to subject the people of the server to mind game one of these days.
Oh Jesus.
Oh God, I was a trip riffing that with you when that was on Tsunami.
Hey, at least we got bragging rights. We were the only ones who stuck around.
And folks, it's not that bad when you really think about it. It's just a mind fuck.
Mm-hmm. But shortly after this is, since we're getting closer to the end game, this is where we start getting more and more of the more and more revelations.
We get into the lore of the place.
Yeah. First off, the one who controls the blimp. It's revealed at this point that it's Kengo, although they didn't do a good job of hiding it.
No,
like I said, the voice.
The voice became the same, and it was one of those the glaring doll from The Simpsons. You know, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Na 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 na.
Yeah, and if you wanted to disguise the voice, you could have done a number of oscillations or just mess with the pitch or hell. Pull
All
a
they
death
did
note.
was slap on some static and went lunch.
But the but in the process of that reveal and the fact that a double marking is apparently a thing, then
Yeah, double marking equal double Mark Musashi's.
yep. And
Double
to be fair,
bad Japanese accents.
they did a pretty good job. They did a pretty good job with the twinning effects.
The Japanese, the tokusatsu department, they got good at the green screen stuff.
And
That's decades of green screen experience right there.
not only that, though, during the high action sequences, they kept the shots dynamic enough to follow the action, but obscured enough that you couldn't see the double's face. You'd only ever see Mark Musashi's face on one at a time.
Yeah, they kept the seams. They found a way to mask the seams relatively well enough for the time, and that should be absolutely, praised for that.
But then, in the aftermath, Professor Otomo,
the old man, the bum.
It's revealed that the bum is Professor Otomo.
Yeah.
Change, you got professors. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
And he had something in his cart that he ends up giving to Tsuyoshi. It's a cell phone.
Outdated technology.
Yeah, it's a flip phone.
It is a flip phone. It is a flip phone that has a recording. Within that recording is Revu, who, well, just to further the whole reset thing, Revu looks exactly like is Tsuyoshi.
Yeah, it almost acts like a video will in a sense. Which, by the way, that must have been an expensive ass flip phone to get that much video in it. Now, that's a long ass video for 2005.
I mean, it was a minute and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Most
That's a
phones
lot
back
of
then
video.
needed an SD card, a full ass SD card to get 2 minutes of video in that shit.
Yep.
That's an expensive ass flip phone, folks.
And
Back then, I don't even think it was SD cards. I think it was the proprietary Sony.
Right, it was you needed you needed to clear up 10,000 phone numbers to get 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, and for certain Sony made objects, it was the memory stick, the same thing that you have in your PSP.
Oh God, yeah.
But it's a little video from the Revu version of Tsuyoshi.
Yeah.
Talking about how they should never say "itekimasu" or "iterashai," and how they were gonna escape Shibuya. He was gonna come back, and they were gonna escape Shibuya somehow.
And with that knowledge, he does convince Emma to reconcile that past. That the person in front of her is not Revu,
but still cares. That's the important thing. He's not Revu, but Revu is a part of him.
Yeah, I'm still, Revu's. I'm not Revu, but Revu is a part of me. I don't need that hat. I just the idea of what Revu wanted to do is still there.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a nice little coda with how it's set up, and then surprise blimp.
And then surprise reveal, it's Kengo, and I'm like, and Tsuyoshi goes, "Well, I don't see how this could be." What?
Yoshi's not happy about it either.
No, Emma and Tsuyoshi just go, "Well, fuck this fucking blimp."
Yeah.
And the person watching the blimp and trying to turn on 10 CRTs.
And Kengo sends a lot of pieces against Tsuyoshi and Emma.
Invasion of the pod pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all, it's yeah, you could imagine David Sutherland and Donald Sutherland and Mark Musashi, but well, you get the idea. Instead of the screaming, it's bad Japanese accents.
Yeah, but this is
There was a joke here, and I lost it. And never mind.
It's at this point where, as things are starting to get worse, and now DJ is the boss of Pal Hands, that Ryugo is starting to do his face turn.
Yeah.
And but as if the army of pieces weren't bad enough, then we have the robots, and Otomo showing up to give a cannon power to Emma's armor,
which tends to blast the robots real good.
It does. The problem is Kengo breaks out more robots.
And unfortunately, Emma Mega Man is not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, eventually she goes kablooey.
Tsuyoshi does try and sacrifice himself in order to let Emma do the kablooey, and he ends up waking up in that same classroom that Asagi was in, and sees everyone else asleep.
And now you're going, what the fuck is going on?
Mm-hmm. And he ends up finding a special room, as well as one of the fake nails that Emma had, and swallows it before he gets thrown back into Shibuya in the exact same spot he was at the start.
But not before finding out what this whole system is about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a virtual system to reform the most unruly teenagers in all of Japan. And it was created because of a specific unnamed person and a terrible event that they instigated.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally created to house the worst of the worst and a fucking murderer.
It's prison school without the prison.
Yeah.
Or the school.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is, hey, you're allowed to be whatever you want. You just gotta follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Kengo even says, if you're killed over and over and over by peace, you eventually become like me, a good kid.
It's the greatest education!
Kengo is, at this point, a teacher for the school.
Yeah. Bad teacher. Bad.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, teacher, leave those kids alone.
All in all, you're just another brick in the wall.
Monk is cringing in the corner. I can feel it.
Yeah.
If any of you argue about meat with pudding, I will kick all of your asses.
Well, how could you have your pudding with no meat?
How do you say "fuck off" in French?
Fulecomp? Fulecomp.
No. There isn't a direct one in Quebecois. One would be va chier, would be one, or go shit yourself. There's a few. There's a few ways.
Yeah. But
there's also just saying "fuck yourself" in French.
Yeah.
Va faire foutre, or va chier, but that's the French version.
I know that the French version of "suck it" just doesn't sound as good.
No, it doesn't.
But
it does not.
But anyway, in this new cycle, as we'll put it,
yeah,
it looks like you're having the same events you saw at the beginning of the series happening all over again, with him meeting up with Pal Hands, meeting up with Asagi. It's as if there's been a time reset. Except for whatever reason, Emma is the boss of Pal Hands with no memory of him.
And no memory of transforming to beat peace.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, no matter of being actually cool.
But
That's a big
And
word.
this causes Tsuyoshi to go confront Kengo, who says that they didn't just reset him; they had to restore the whole world.
They had to fucking shut down the thing and turn it back the fucking on.
yep.
More
But-
like a system restore point. It restored to the last known good configuration.
Yeah. But in the process of this, apparently the sight of the moon is enough to start a chain of events to not only cause Emma to remember the events that happened before that, in order to once again kick Peace's ass, but to cause everyone to revert to their original appearance and remember their real names. And just for good measure, Emma kills off the blimp.
With the
Kills
cannon.
it dead.
It's not just the sight of the moon, though, Monk. She was marked.
She was marked. There was a gang war.
Peace showed up, and
Yeah.
she was about to say "Itekimasu,"
Mm-hmm.
but looking at the moon brought back just that little bit of both
It was-
Rebu and Tsuyoshi to remind her that never say it.
It was literally a combination of there was a gang war. She was about to get extra stabby, which is a no-no. Everyone's saying, and it jostles the brain, and she looks at the moon, thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be the last time I see this beautiful thing." You take it. Oh God, I can't say that, can I? Fuck!
Yeah.
I can't say it. I'll never say it. Armor falls down. She's like, "Ooh, shiny." She touches it. Big beam of light. Peace is quote unquote defeated for now, and everyone reverts.
Yeah. And then Otomo announces that the world is about to come to an end, and the 109 building starts
Together with the 108 building that existed beside it,
Yep.
showing that was the biggest clue that this was not the Shibuya everybody knew, because there isn't a 108 building.
But the neon lights on the thing become a clock.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
I'll have to correct you there, Monk. Those aren't neon lights. That was the actual 109 signboard, and it was just counting down like a clock because it's a virtual world.
Yeah.
Now,
It
as
was
an
it was both literal in the kayfabe and it's both. It was CGI in both the kayfabe and real life sense.
and in the aftermath of Emma's merge that destroyed Peace, destroyed the blimp, and reverted everybody, all of the classmates got their memories of their real names and their real lives back. Their memories of who they are in reality.
Although
And-
they still use they still use the Shibuya names just out of convenience.
In the next episode, yes. But Emma does not until she touches the fake nail that Tsuyoshi found in the real world that he puked up. And Emma reveals at that point that she was the teenager who went fucking crazy, got arrested by what is essentially Japanese SWAT, had even stolen a gun from a cop. You could tell because it was a 6-shooter revolver that had a cable tie on it, which is what most police officers who are allowed to carry firearms in Japan, which isn't a lot of them, it's clipped to their belt on that cable. So she had stolen it from another cop, probably one she had killed with a knife in her hand. And so she found out that she was a terrible person back in reality.
Oh, she was extra horrible.
But she's not horrible anymore. And Tsuyoshi says, it doesn't matter. Whatever is out there, I'll face it with you.
And the finale, everything starts to essentially unravel, and then someone who's only shown up once at this point, the chairman, decides to try and stop everyone from leaving Shibuya by transforming into Peace.
Basically, he wants to stop people from leaving by murdering everybody. Yeah, murder will work.
And it's a super duper version of Peace who has a tattoo that extends all the way up onto his face, which looked so fucking ridiculous.
He went from mega cringe to super cringe.
And while Peace Peace/Chairman is defeated once and for all in the ensuing fight, when they try and leave and get to the real world, it's revealed that Emma was in a vegetative state and could only live in Shibuya, the world created by Otoma.
Basically, Otoma in the simulation says no, she can't leave.
No, he doesn't say it in the simulation. He says it outside. He tells Tsuyoshi in the special room because he's been. What we kind of gloss over.
Here's what happened. Both they defeat Peace ultimately, and that breaks the thing. And the whole thing is everyone tries to escape. Of course, the chairman tries to cock block him. And Tsuyoshi literally goes. They're literally at the door, or one of the limits. And three of them go, and he realizes, well, what about Emma? Emma wanted to escape. And I said, and she's not there yet. She's moping somewhere. So basically,
Which part of you is speaking, Dad? You or your gonads?
Right now, they have power of attorney.
or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Tsuyoshi literally goes, well, what about Emma? I got to go back to Emma. He goes back to Emma. Then they defeat Peace. And that fucks up the system. Tsuyoshi's the last one out. So he goes back to that special room and finds Emma, but she's not waking up. And that's how we find out. That's when we find out the professor who was really fucking stabbed, that she's in a vegetative state because something went wrong with putting her into the system. Shibuya 15, there's your title, was created to make sure that she could actually live, at least her consciousness, her spirit could live.
And ultimately, Tsuyoshi decides to return to Shibuya to be with Emma.
But because Shibuya has been shut down, it's empty. It's just the buildings.
By the way, that extra part where he steps back into Shibuya, and it's all empty and all that shit, that's a post-credit scene.
It's not only is it a post-credit scene, it's some bad CGI compositing.
It's bad. It's bad green screen. No, to be fair, good luck shutting down Shibuya for even 5 minutes with no one around to do that shot.
Yeah, as I was about to say, Shibuya being a large economically powerful district is not something you can shut down.
You would need a shitload of money, which the production did not have.
Yeah, so it looks like they're standing on
what they would need to shut it down for even 5 minutes.
Yeah. So it looks like they're standing on a piece of paper, because they kind of are.
They had no choice in the matter.
Especially since good luck trying to clear out the busiest crosswalk in the entire district.
Scramble crossing.
But with that particular ending, I think it's time that we render our judgments.
All right. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues of the Parliament, it comes down to this. We will now decide whether Shibuya 15 be weeb or be scrub. Maddie, as this was one that you brought to the courts of the Parliament today, you first. Weeb or scrub?
This one's tough because when I originally watched this, I only got 3 episodes because at the time it was still being released. So, and by the time I hit college, that was 2005, 2008, Downloading a full series at the time was a challenge. So those 3 episodes, those first 3, I loved the concept. I thought, okay, Matrix, but with school children, with a neo noir setting and a Japanese tokusatsu flavor. I'm like, okay, I'm down. You go down the rabbit hole, and it's confusing. And I must admit, there are portions of the show where I just completely lost interest. That right off the bat, not good. Story was fine. And then the robots came in, and I'm like, that was gratuitous. That was too much. That was leading into, hey, this is from Japan. Without, going into too much detail. Long story short, I got a perfect bun for this.
$1 million move, $2 shot.
That's pretty much what it was. Thank you, MBA Jam Guy. Love the concept. Would love to rework it. If there's ever a chance we get to do this, I'd love to throw in a couple of things. But I must vote Scrub.
All right. Brother Matty has brought a vote of Scrub to Shibuya 15. Monk, what is your verdict?
As Matty had said, this is a concept that I should love, because you all know I'm very, very big on speculative science fiction.
Oh yeah.
Speculative, high concept, I love that stuff. I've mentioned in the past, one of my favorite films of the last 20 years is Inception.
You and I both.
I love Inception. And too many people are like, oh, it's overplayed.
Yeah, because some of it's still good, folks.
Most of it's still good.
Let's be honest. The only people finding it overplayed are people sick of the Inception horror meme.
Wow.
Which will never get old.
No. But what I'm saying is a lot of the people who are saying that kind of thing are either fucking hipsters or never saw the movie, or both.
Hey, I'll admit to being a hipster in certain circles, but at the same time, I know what I like.
You don't drink enough soy milk to be that kind of hipster, Matty.
I don't even drink soy milk. What the fuck are you talking about?
Exactly.
Hey,
Rails, guys.
Hey, I like my iced coffee, but not with the soy milk. Keep going.
Yeah. That being said, given that I feel like this is a case of misappropriating time. You have 12 episodes to work with on this. When you're dealing with a story where you only have 12 episodes, you can't afford to fuck around. And a large amount of the story can be summarized as activity with very little movement.
Everybody's moving in place then.
Especially when it came to the gang situation.
There's a lot of you've explained a lot of the key characters, and you could have put in a few extra characters if you wanted to, but a lot of it eventually became superfluous.
Yeah, the gang warfare became less and less relevant in the face of the main story, which is who the hell is Tsuyoshi. But things like Emma's ability to merge, as they call it, is never explained. The chairman comes right the hell out of nowhere. Kengo's face turn at the last minute feels very odd after he spent so much time being an outright control type villain. And then right at the end we have the revelation that not only did Emma do something absolutely terrible, but she ended up in a coma.
As part of her sentence, she was sentenced to do something in Shibuya, and in transferring her mind into the system, something went completely wrong.
And when you end up having it where the goal has always been get out of Shibuya. That goal is finally within reach, and all of a sudden you decide to throw all of that away just for the sake of being with someone who's trapped in a virtual world that now has no one in it. It's one of those cases where one could argue that this is intended to be a satisfying coda of someone who would throw away everything to be with someone they love. But once you go past the surface level, you start having problems. And this is very much a case of that. And as much as I'd like to praise some of the good points of it, especially Mark Musashi being the star of the show, I have to adhere to my principles of holism. And thus I can't give it anything but scrub.
All right, the monk has deemed Shibuya 15 to be scrub. As for myself, this concept, both when I watched it years ago and again when I watched it now, much as my brothers have stated, was an interesting concept. But as we all know, interesting concepts do not alone make a good show or any sort of good media. All I can say is this was a fantastic concept poorly executed. There were some good parts to the execution. Lots of the special effects did well. The fight choreography was actually really good for teenagers because most of those kids were actually kids.
Yeah, and some of those kids were actually pretty decent in acting. I think that should be praised as well.
Mm-hmm. Especially Tsuyoshi's actor, who you would not tell is actually a woman.
Which, props to the makeup department for that.
Mm-hmm. She did a really good job portraying the youthful vigor of a boy. Fantastic job. And on top of all of this, along with their good choreography amongst each other, they managed to choreograph well with Mark Musashi, which wouldn't have been hard for Mark Musashi, but would have been hard for the kids. There was obviously some wire fighting in there. We could tell with the way, especially Emma and Peace would fight.
There was wire fu, which nothing wrong with wire fu.
Mm-hmm. And all of these different elements that were executed so well made for good parts of watching. But then we get to the plodding, almost molasses in Minnesota winter plot. There could have been much more movement, and there could have been a more satisfying conclusion if that movement had been honored. The confrontation with the school could have happened much sooner. And because of that, there could have been not only the whole revelation of Emma's in a coma, it could have been, instead of the kids escaping Shibuya and leaving Emma behind, or everyone escaping Shibuya and Tsuyoshi staying behind to stay with Emma, it could have been Tsuyoshi rallying the kids to go back into Shibuya to bring her back out of her coma, and then that's the true escape from Shibuya. Mm-hmm. And that could have been done in the same amount of time and effectively if they had honored the time given. But they spent too much time plotting around what almost felt like what you would do with a Mexican telenovela. Where they just kind of plotted around in cuellas or something for a little while.
Yeah.
It almost felt like they were wasting time like in a telenovela.
And I've never been a fan of telenovelas, if I'm being honest.
On top of all of that, and this is something that I tend to be the one to harp on most with every show we've put up. The sound identity of this show isn't. There is no uniform identity. The most sound we get is the Whiplash ending theme. and sometimes the dance tracks of Bunkamu. Beyond that, the sound design is more around like actual spatial atmospheric sounds like in a city.
Yeah.
But there's no real identity. That's just atmosphere for atmosphere's sake.
You have
Which
the
can-
ominous you have the ominous chanting in bits during some fights, as was the style at the time, and
Yeah.
you have the more reggae like track. I'm not even gonna say music. It's just one track that's used for, say, Bunkamu, and especially anytime anyone's at Koya.
Yeah, it's almost like the atmospheric music that you get in very early MMPR, and it's without an identity. Coupled with the fact that the end of every episode is a fucking upbeat pop whiplash, it takes you out of it. There's no keeping your suspension of disbelief at the end of an episode. It's not going to happen. Not unless you just stop it before you get to the actual ending theme. Because of the failure to build on the time they could have had, the failure to establish, it didn't even have to be like a big bombastic identity, but it still needed something to root it, to measure it. It needed some sort of audio identity to help with pacing, even, because that's part of how audio identity can help, is pacing. And then, of course, giving us an ending that felt rushed, a bit Deus Exy, and contrived, and also unfulfilling. Not only was it unearned for Kengo to go face to heel to face again, it was unearned for Tsuyoshi to just abandon everything and go back in. Everything felt like a betrayal of what had been set up. I absolutely cannot give this weeb. It is, in no uncertain terms, scrub. And with 3 scrub and 0 weeb, the Parliament of Geeks has found Shibuya 15 to be scrub.
Now, as far as whether or not we would do a reconstructing Shibuya 15, if I'm being honest, no. There's, quite frankly, not enough meat on the bones, and it doesn't quite meet my criteria. Also, we already have a better version of Shibuya 15. It's called The World Ends With You.
Yeah.
And, well, I think everybody else already knows our opinion about The World Ends With You.
Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is that the things that would need changing is in this no man's land of either too little or too much. At the very least, the entire third act would need to get nuked. But truth be told, this is the problem when you have something whose biggest flaw is it doesn't manage its time properly.
Yeah, that's the big thing. The acting is there. Mark Musashi is a fucking godsend when you really think about it. They have the elements to make a truly iconic show, and 12 episodes truly was enough, but they mismanaged those 12 episodes. That and mismanaged is the best word for it.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, the plot is at a lot of times plotting like molasses in a Minnesota winter, like a goddamn Mexican telenovela.
Yeah.
They had the right ideas to introduce as many of the elements as possible, but they went too quick on some of the big elements and the smaller and they took too much time on the smaller elements that eventually did not matter. It's not that it's a crime, but at the same time, there's a way to introduce the gang element as as an X factor, as in like that's the variable. That's what it makes things difficult to go from point A to point B in the main plot of things. Mm-hmm. There's a way to do that properly. There's a way to give everybody a sense of, okay, there are stakes, there are things to do. There's a way to do Emma properly. Mm-hmm. And she was well introduced at the beginning, but the ending sucked. Yep. There was a way to say, yeah, you can escape, but Emma has to stay. Mm-hmm. And the key element was the professor, the bum, the old man. That's the key right there. And they took too much time to go from he's just an old man trying to speak gibberish to when they should have just said, well, the gibberish is gibberish until episode 3 or 4, where it really starts to sink in of, oh wait, he's just trying to get these guys moving along.
Do you think the writers were acting for a while like they were writing a 26 episode anime?
You get the feeling that they had 26 episodes in mind, but the budget and the allowance for just 12. Mm-hmm. And I get the feeling they tried to trim up the fat, but they trimmed meat instead of fat by accident. You get that feeling.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of meat cut off there. That was necessary.
Yeah. Now, moving past that, this is as good a time as any to discuss the future. Now, instead of having a set one to go with, I ended up scouring through a bunch of lists, suggestions, and otherwise, and put them in a wheel on Wheel of Names. So I haven't hit the spin yet, and we're going to find out what series is going to be next. And the answer is Seven Knights Revolution.
All right.
So, please look forward to that in a few weeks. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty.